welcome to your real estate journey, expert tips for buyers and sellers. I'm your host, Dolly Lopez, and I'm thrilled to have here with us today Ana. She's a fantastic CPA. She's a partner at Ana B Garcia CPA with nearly 20 years of experience under her belt. Ana is a true expert in real estate taxes and has helped countless individuals and companies to find smart strategies to save on their taxes. So, Ana, it's so great to have you on the show. I can't wait to dive into our topic today, which is 1031 exchange. How are you doing?
Hi, Dolly. It's a pleasure to be here with you again, and just happy to talk about the 1031 exchange, such a popular topic. But you would think everybody would know about it, and yet there's a few intricacies in it that we definitely have to, tell the investors so they know when they're going to actually do the 1031.
This is such a vital subject for real estate investors. Together, we'll break down what 1031 exchange is and how it can really work wonders for some people looking to maximize their investment. We will also discuss benefits, using strategies, and well, it's more Ana. She's the expert. I'm the expert in real estate, but she does the tax planning. I know our listeners will appreciate listening. Which type of properties qualify for 1031 exchange? Plus, we'll also touch on those all important deadlines because, as we all know, timing can be everything in real estate. And of course, we'll also talk about some common pitfalls investors might face during a 1031 exchange and how to steer clear of those issues. So, all right, Ana, let's jump into the first question. So, what is a 1031 exchange and how does it work for real estate investors?
So 1031 exchange, again, it's a very common theme you hear among real estate investors. And it came about because it is actually a section of the IRS code. It's section 1031. And what it does is it's the IRS incentivizing investors to go a certain way, right? So what it does is it provides a way for investors to keep growing their wealth, avoiding or deferring, I'm not going to say avoiding, deferring their taxes so that they can exchange one property for another. And so when we talk about exchanging properties, it doesn't have to be necessarily a house for a house, land for land, residential multifamily for a residential multifamily. It could be a mix of those things. So as long as you're exchanging real estate with real estate, that's what we call like-kind exchange, which is exactly what the 1031 exchange does.
Good. So what is the main benefit of using 1031 exchange for tax purposes?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, the 1031 defers the tax. And what that means is, when you sell a property, an investment property, you have to pay capital gains tax. We're talking usually about 20%, right? So for a lot of investors, this represents a lot of money. And so what you can do is to defer that 20% in tax is you sell your property, you buy a new property for the same value at least or greater value. And so that tax, that 20%, you no longer have to pay it at the moment of the sale. You just keep deferring it. You take it to the future, right? And so these can be done over and over and over again. There's actually a certain time when you can do the next 1031, but it is a very good strategy because if you think about it, you start buying a condo unit that then you convert into a single family home, and that single family home becomes a multifamily, and you never pay taxes on any of this, and you can end up with a 100 unit multifamily that you never pay taxes on. In addition to that, when you pass away, your heirs can inherit the property, and there's something called step up in basis, which means that your children, whoever inherits that property, is going to inherit it at the fair market value, and that tax that you were supposed to pay, it goes away entirely, completely. You never see it.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what type of properties qualify for a 1031 exchange, and are there any restrictions while doing as far as properties go?
Right. So yes, there are restrictions, and it's pretty much, if we're talking real estate, right? Because you could do 1031 with other types of assets, but focusing on the real estate,
Oh my God.
exchange gold, you can, yes, you can. But for concentrating on the real estate area of the code, we are talking about land, we are talking about residential, we are talking about commercial. We said multifamily. It could be a condominium. It could be many, many things, right? And when you talk about restrictions, you want to make sure that this is actually an investment property. So what is exempted from a 1031 exchange is your personal home. You cannot do a 1031 on that. And also a vacation home, a second home, cannot be used for a 1031 exchange. And vice versa. You cannot sell an investment property to buy a personal residence or to buy a vacation home. Okay, so those are the two things that would be restricted from a 1031.
So now let me ask, what happens if you purchase a 1031 exchange property, which is it's used for commercial for business, and you want to move into that property 2, 3, 5 years down the road because it doesn't longer fits the purpose for what you purchased it, or it's not doing uh, you're not getting the gain that you wanted to get. So is there any restrictions around that?
So if you have, usually when you do a 1031 exchange, you have about 2-3 years of you keeping the property the way that you intended it to be used. So let's say that you sold a house and now you bought a duplex, right? That duplex has to remain the way it was, meaning the owners have to be the same owners that bought it when the exchange happened. The the general conditions have to be the same. You can repair, you can remodel, you can change your tenants, right? 2 to 3 years. After the 2 to 3 years, you can switch it to an LLC. You can do different things. The only thing is, the moment you live in it, it could trigger a tax effect. And that's when you have to contact your tax advisor, your tax planning expert, to really find out, or even the qualifier, the qualified intermediary, which is the person that helped you through the 1031 exchange, to make sure that you're complying with other regulations that are required. So it's still a valid transaction, right? So
Okay. What are the important deadlines and timelines investors they should need to be aware of when conducting a 1031 exchange?
so that's one of the let's say caveats of the 1031 exchange, or the I think it's one of the negative things, if you will. You have a timeline, a very strict timeline, when you are doing a 1031 exchange. The first one is, you have to have identified at least three, not at least, but a maximum of three properties, so 1 to 3 properties that can be uh, part of the exchange. And this timeline is 45 days. That's a month and a half that you have to really find the property that you want to purchase. These 45 days begin when you sell that your property, right? So you have the 45 days to identify, and then you have 180 day or 6 months after you sold the property to really close on the new property. And those are the timelines that we're looking at.
So whenever you mean the first 45 days, do you mean just to identify the property, or do you have to be under contract with that property?
To just identify the property.
And then if you have identified the property, you identify the three properties, but then you change your mind and you don't want to buy those three, you just want to buy another. Is that even possible? Does that happen? Because I guess
Well,
I haven't seen it myself. I have helped quite a few investors do a 1031 exchange. However, they normally find it within those 45 days just because they know there's this very strict timeline and we are on the go. We're trying to do things as fast as possible. But if they just identify three properties and then instead buying the three, they want to buy another.
so this is one of the reasons why 1031 exchanges are not always the best option, right? We have seen people go into a 1031, buy the new property, and then regret it because the new property is actually an older property. It doesn't cash flow, even though the prior property was not maybe the best option, the best investment. The new one is even worse. So we've seen it happen time and time again. What happens at that point is, if you think that the deal is not going to go through, that you don't like the properties, You have to talk to your intermediary. Again, that's the person that has your money from the sale of the property, of your old property. They have the money, and you have to notify them to see what options they give you. If you don't go through with your 1031 exchange, we do have other options after you sell the property, and other tax savings techniques that are not a 1031 exchange, that we can definitely help the client to mitigate the taxes anyway.
Okay. So I guess this would be one of the most common mistakes investors would make while using the 1031 exchange. How can people avoid, how can these investors avoid making those mistakes?
Well, what a lot of people do is, number one, if you have to identify these three properties, typically you want to see the properties before you actually go through with the sale, right? So you want to look at the market. You want to see what's out there. Do I want to buy in this area or that area? And it becomes a matter of, before I make the actual sale of my property, let me see what's out there. What are the areas I'm interested in? Are they cash flowing? What am I looking at, right? So that when the time comes for you to really identify, at least you have some idea of where you're looking at. Some people even put it in the contract. I'm not selling until I can identify properties, and right. So you have ways to mitigate that. And let me tell you, Dolly, people think that 1031 exchange is the only way to mitigate taxes, and it's not. And not only that, but a lot of times, sometimes it's just better to pay off the taxes, because what happens with the 1031 exchange is you're relinquishing a property and you're taking a new property, right? What if you don't want to have to deal with real estate and tenants and toilets? Well, you sell your property, you pay the taxes, and then you have that income, you have the cash, and maybe you put it somewhere else that's going to give you higher returns. So we always try to evaluate that with our clients. Okay, what is your goal for doing the 1031 exchange? Let's talk about where you want to go. Do you need the cash, or do you want to build wealth and buy a bigger asset? And that's how you make your decision and avoid mistakes.
And we were talking before we went on air that it's so difficult to find CPAs that also helps the client make strategy calls and explore their financials in debt, and actually talking to the clients to fully understand their needs and actually give them options. So there are extremely few, and I only know one, and it's you. So because I know a lot of CPAs, but they don't offer that service, which is so important, because once again, at the end of the year, it might be too late to do things. And people have heard of 1031 exchange, and it might not be their best option. I love 1031 exchange, but there are certain situations when having talking to a professional will help. And that's the same way with real estate. You want to do this investment, or you want to purchase this property, but then at the end of the day, if you don't have the proper person to guide you to truly understand your needs and try to go after your best interest, it will be hard. I'll tell you. And I'll end up with this question. Once you have completed a 1031 exchange, what do you do next to properly file your taxes?
Okay, so hopefully before you started the exchange, you talked to your tax planner, your tax advisor, and you were advised, right? And so this person, this tax expert, is going to guide you along with your 1031 qualified intermediary through the process. Once you're done with the process, the next step would be filing your taxes, right? And so that's when you need to have that support, because you need an expert who really understands the process, who really understands the 1031 exchange, and really is deferring the tax. You don't want to report a property that you did a 1031 for, and you're actually paying taxes on the sale. So make sure that you're getting advice from the right person, seeking the tax preparation from a tax planning expert who really understands 1031 exchange.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for joining me today and giving your time to explain to our viewers about 1031 exchange and taxes. So, you guys, I hope you have enjoyed our conversation and have gained valuable insights for your future real estate investments. So, remember, we're here to assist you. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to comment down below or give us a call at the number on the screen. We'll be more than happy to help. Sometimes we won't answer the phone ourselves. Obviously, we have staff to do so, but we are going to be there and be your support whenever you need us. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are in Instagram, Facebook, TikTok channel, so you won't miss any of our episodes. Please share this content with your friends and colleagues who might benefit from it as well. And thank you for tuning in to your real estate journey, expert tips for buyers and sellers. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.
See you. Bye.